Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello, possible people. Welcome back to the podcast. I wonder how you're doing this week. Are you running on high energy, low energy? Are you killing it where you're at? Are you feeling like you just can't keep up or that things are falling through the cracks? Regardless of where you're at, I appreciate you joining us back here today. And I have a really special guest today that I think if you are feeling, maybe you're a leader, and this could be a leader in your job. This could be a leader in an organization that you volunteer for, in your community, or maybe even in your home. Maybe you're like leader, CEO of your home, whatever that role is, and you find yourself kind of maybe teetering on the edge of what I'd like to call burnout, or maybe you feel like you don't have the capacity to do all the things, but you want to make influence or create an influence on those around you that is lasting, then you came to the right place today. Because I have a special guest, and her name is April Diaz, and she is the founder and CEO of Ezer and Co. And in that place, they help you about this leadership stuff and about how to really figure it out. Because, unless you have done coaching or read a lot of books or done some self-awareness and personal development in this area, folks, leading is not for the faint of heart. It's hard at days. It can be very rewarding. But if you don't take care of you, you might be the one that needs the help in the end when you're trying to help all these people and lead them in a certain direction. So I'm so excited to have April here today. Welcome, April.
Hi, Christy. I'm so thrilled to be with you and your audience. I love the name of this podcast, Inspiring Possible. I think we have so much more possibility within us. And so folks that are listening, I think they believe that. And so it's really fun to be able to contribute today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about why is it that you're passionate about helping leaders? Like where did that come for you and how did this become a thing?
Yeah, I'm passionate about leaders because I am one. And I have been a leader since I was a very little girl. But most of my life, especially when I was little, I didn't think that I should be leading or that I could lead. But I had all these dreams and ambitions and goals. And so I just found myself leading, just taking people places, and being out in front
Were you the
and
little
calling
girl
people.
On the playground that everybody was like,
Of course. And I mainly got called bossy, which we're still changing that narrative. But I've always been one. And I think in some parts, because I was told that I couldn't or shouldn't be one, I have always looked for help as a leader. I have always believed that I have it within me, but I need others to help me fulfill my potential. And so that certainly was not conscious or, expressed verbally, but I very much always believed I need others to guide me and walk with me and show me how it's done. And so I've collected a gaggle of mentors and coaches and therapists and all that along the way.
Books, you got them books too, all them leadership
more books. Yeah, they're all over my shoulder here. And I've sold a whole bunch of them and do them all from the library as much as possible. Because yes, I'm surrounded by books on my floor here. It's just a huge passion of mine. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here doing the thing.
Okay. Well, what have you found? Because this maybe is interesting because like you said, it sounds like you had some natural leading abilities within you, even from a young age.
Yeah.
But there were maybe some messages that you received that maybe you shouldn't be the one leading people, or even the bossy one that's can really have a negative vibe to it, right? It's not always seen as a positive thing to be
not
bossy,
for a girl.
right?
For boys it is, but not for a girl.
Yeah. So how did you kind of, and obviously you spent a lot of time in this, what do you find is a big challenge among people that are either self-identified leaders, like I'm leading XYZ, or I am in this leadership role, or even people that don't even realize that they're leading and they are leading, whether they know it or not. What do you find is the biggest challenges that you see leaders face?
It's a great question. Two things pop to mind right away. One is actually what you said in the intro. Leadership is hard. And most of us don't like to do hard things. We like to be comfortable. We like to be secure. We like to know the plan. And leadership doesn't have those kind of safety nets or security. One of my mentors told me probably 15 years ago, she was like, April, because I kept telling her like how hard things were. And I was just, whining and complaining and asking for help and it's so hard. And she just looked at me and she goes, April, leadership is hard. Get over it. And I was like, I was looking for a little like compassion and softness and like, sympathy. And she just named what was true. And that was so helpful for me because it normalized that this leadership thing is hard. And another mentor of mine said to me not that long ago, actually, I was also complaining and just venting to her about challenges that I'm facing currently as a leader. And she said, April, the reality is that all of us are over our skis. She's like, leaders are naturally just going to places, taking people to places that they have never been before, but need to go. And we also have never been there. Like we're creating the future. And so guess what? None of us have ever been to the future. We're creating it. So we are over our skis. We do not know what we are doing. So I think that that's the first piece is that it's really hard.
I just want to demystify this real quick too for anybody listening that may not really be in a leadership position or they're being led or they may be
Yeah.
contemplating leading. Because I know that I kind of know my own experience about this, but I'm curious to hear your perspective. April, why is leadership hard?
Well, yeah, because we're taking people to places that we've never been before, they've never been before. And a lot of times, because we crave comfort and security, going to a new place requires uncomfortability and a lack of security. And that's really challenging for folks. And so, people tend to like, oh shoot, I lost the word. But like we don't like change, right?
Yeah.
We like change that serves
Change
us really
averse.
well, but we're change adverse. Yeah, exactly. And so that change requires loss, and we are people who don't like loss as well. So I think that those are a couple of significant reasons why leadership is hard, and because we've just never done it like this before. We've never been here and now and going to that new place at this moment in time.
Well, and I think, I don't know if this has been your experience, but it's like the most greatest professional development journey you can ever embark on because it's going to
100%.
make you deal with all your stuff, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you're an
Yes.
aware leader, if you're wanting to be
Hmm.
aware,
Yeah.
because you're going to have these, like you said, uncomfortable emotions because there's something, a problem or something about the future that you're having to bring somebody to
Hmm.
or solve before
Hmm.
it gets here. And I feel like, leadership brings up all the things
Yeah.
that you might have been avoiding. So you
Yeah.
have to be able to live in that discomfort and
Mhm.
be able to learn how to deal with it and move through it. So you're going
Yeah.
to say though something second though, something
Well,
number 2.
you nailed it. You actually said
Oh,
what I was
okay.
going to say. No, I love it. And we're on the same page here. I think that that's the other piece of it that's really hard is the hardest person you will ever lead is yourself. And a lot of leaders don't lead themselves well. It requires a disproportionate amount of reflection and time and energy and investment and honesty and feedback. And
Feedback. Ooh.
we don't want that.
Yeah, because feedback
That's
requires you to be vulnerable and open and
absolutely. And
listen and
leadership
all
is
those
not known
things.
to be vulnerable, right? Like historically, the way that we've talked about leadership has been the opposite of vulnerability. It's like armor up, know what you're talking about, be confident, make sure that everyone knows you have all the answers. And that's like the antithesis to what I actually think is holistic leadership and sustainable leadership. But that self-awareness piece is so critical. So a lot of the work that I do, a lot of the coaching, I mean, it begins and ends with this self-awareness because that really does open up capacity and potential for you to lead fully and for people to follow you and for you to have that lasting influence, for you to have impact that is beyond, some flash in the pan or some sort of unsustainable model.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this because you're right.
Okay.
I think about again, I reflect on my own journey. I think about
Yep.
how leadership has challenged me. It's stretched me. It's made me feel a lot of discomfort. And my
Yeah.
personality type really likes to flee from, I mean, and most of us, I think, flee from
Yeah.
discomfort, but me and uncomfortable feelings, I'm just like, no,
Hmm.
we should be
No,
happy
thank
and
you.
joy. Why do we got to deal with that? But I also know that, like you said, there's a way to do this sustainably. And I don't
Hmm.
know if everybody always can figure out this way. And I'm still learning how to do this sustainably because it can be when you're over the skis, you're trying to push people ahead, or you may be going,
Mhm.
and now that we're looking at going down the mountain over the skis is what I'm thinking of. Like sometimes you're just trying to survive till you get to
Yeah.
the bottom of that
Mhm.
hill or on the top of that hill, however you want
Mhm.
to view leadership. How does someone start to evaluate, number one, whether they're doing this in a sustainable way that's not going to put them in a pit of burnout? And what are the steps to kind of maybe rethink leadership in a way that could be, like you say, more holistic and really can create
Mhm.
that lasting influence?
Again, excellent question. And the way that I think and talk about it is that sustainable success requires holistic leadership. The leadership that I was modeled, I'm 45 years old. So I have been, leading for 40 years, literally since I was a little girl, but certainly since high school in structured ways, in specific roles, in formalized responsibilities since I was probably 15 years old. So 30 years of my life. What I
What's
was
your
modeled.
first leadership thing at 15? I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a student leader on a high school campus organization. I was one of
Okay.
7 that was selected in a group of like 120 that were part of this club. I was also in student council all 4 years of high school, ended up being president of student council, of course, my junior and senior year. So I had experience from that early days.
Yeah.
And really what I was modeled and shown was leadership was very external. It's what you did. It was like the outcomes of the goals, of the initiatives, and as I grew and had kind of more, professional experience as an adult, it's your KPIs, it's your metrics, it's the bottom line, it's your revenue, right? It's all been talked about very externally. But I'm a big believer that leadership begins within and that you need to expand your internal capacity in order to get external results. When you do that, you get sustainable leadership. You get sustainable success. And leading from an internal place requires taking a look at your whole person. Like holistic literally means whole, right? And so the whole person shows up in a leadership meeting, in strategic planning, in team meetings, in one-on-ones, in every single thing that you do, you're bringing your whole self. That's exactly like how I would just synthesize it and make it as compact as possible is that sustainable success is all about holistic leadership.
Yeah, and it starts from and it almost sounds like what I'm hearing you say is it starts from an internal awareness.
Yeah.
Like it's not just what you do on the outside that's really going to make for sustainable leadership.
Yeah.
It's actually what you're focusing on internally and the whole parts of you.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about this, or when you're maybe working with somebody, where are the first places you get them to explore maybe to
Mhm.
see how are we doing? How are you doing as a leader? Anyways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So a couple of things. One is, oftentimes people come to me because of a leadership, problem or need or desire to grow or to expand their leadership influence or their impact. But we start within. And so we just, it's like right away, we're like, okay, you came for this reason, but we actually need to start in here because this is it. Like you are leading from here. So the coaching that I do is holistic. Begins with physical and it's 6 different parts. These 6 parts are interconnected because we are whole people. So it starts with physical and then emotional, mental, relational, spiritual, and renewal. That's your whole self. It's in that order on purpose. So we begin with your body because your body is the basis for your whole life. Without this, you can't do anything. You no longer exist, right? My grandfather's 94 years old. He just got put on hospice yesterday. And he has just lived this very full, beautiful life. And it's his time to go. Like I'm smiling not because I'm happy to see him go. I'm smiling he's just lived a really beautiful life. And
Mhm.
it's been full, right? And it's the last breath that he takes, he no longer lives here, right? He is no longer with us. And so we begin with our body because your body is the basis for your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this because, I mean, I was re-listening to this interview I did a long time ago on somebody else's podcast, okay? Somehow I came
Yeah.
about it and I was like, "Let me reflect about where I was then in my mindset
Yeah. Who
as
was
a
Christy
leader,"
back
right?
then versus now?
Yeah, it was really interesting to listen to, but I remember in our conversation, he was reflecting on a time that he had gotten very sick, and I'm thinking about this from
Mhm.
a physical standpoint as well, right? Where he got sick and how that impacted his ability to move the needle forward, to lead effectively. So when you think about physical well-being, you also think about, like you said, when this body's
Yeah.
not here, then we're
Yeah.
no longer here present in a physical form.
Yeah.
But I also think, if your body's not doing well, it's hard for you to lead people,
100%.
in your
Yeah.
physical self. So, what are some things that you see people? I know we talk about the holistic person, but for physical, when
Yeah.
leaders come to you,
Mhm.
where do you see the challenges that maybe they're not taking care of their self physically or paying attention to their physical self?
Yeah, so we have a proprietary wholeness assessment that we take leaders through in the very beginning. So it's 120 questions. It's very robust, it's very deep, it's very personal in all 6 parts of who you are holistically in both life and leadership, right? So there are very personal questions and there's very leadership oriented questions because again, it's the whole person. The results that we have seen over the last 5 years since we created this assessment, which has been validated and verified by like leading neuroscientists and psychologists and executive coaches and incredible people that have put their sign off of approval on this thing. What we've seen is that with leaders, for both men and women, physical and renewal are the 2 lowest scored in that self assessment. They
Wow.
struggle the most with their bodies and with rest and recovery and, renewing themselves, which is not surprising. And yet it's still like, okay, this is our work. So when folks come and most of the time physical and or renewal are the bottom 2 of the 6 different parts that show up in the results of their assessment, that's why we begin with physical, because it's like we need to get some quick wins here. We need to elevate this because if you're focused on these other parts and especially the external, you're not going to get sustainable results and you're going to go back to these old ways and patterns of programming that actually are not getting you like long-term results that you desire. So when we talk about physical specifically, there are 4 different areas that are required for us to have physical wholeness. It begins with your breath. It is supported by sleep, it's fueled by food, and it's maximized by movement. Again, in that order on purpose because of the biology and the physiology of how our bodies function. So it begins with your breath. Without your breath, you cease to exist, right? But most of us have never been taught how to properly breathe. It's an automatic part of of our bodies, right? We just do it. But most of us are breathing in ways that are actually counterproductive to the oxygen and the carbon dioxide getting through our bodies in ways that are most effective and productive and healing, really, even for our bodies. And then it's supported by sleep, which all the research shows adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. Sometimes you need more if you're sick or if you're
How often do you find leaders really like not getting enough sleep?
maybe 50% of the time. I don't
Okay.
have the data in front of me, but I would say, yeah. And sometimes there are seasons, right, that prevent you from that. You've got a small child, you're caring for an aging parent, you are sick. There's some things that can prevent that. But yeah, I would say probably around 50%. Some leaders really kill it because they just know I need that. I need it and they do it. But others really struggle. Um, and then our physical wholeness is fueled by food, which means are you getting the proper nutrients to fuel your body, to provide it the energy and the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that your body needs to succeed. But I also think food is not only fuel, but it's fun. And it's such a way that we connect and like have experience pleasure and joy and real community with people. So it's
Oh,
not
yeah, girl,
just
I'm from the South. They all
I know
connect with food. If food's not involved, there's something wrong,
exactly. And
okay?
I'm a Midwest girl, so there were potlucks and there's,
That's
like
right.
anytime you come together, it's like just a barrel of butter and carbs. That was kind of the
I
way.
always say, like, where is all the people that these people cook for? When are they gonna show up? Because I don't know about you, but I was raised in a place,
So
like,
much.
where I'm like, my aunt literally cooked for an army, and that never showed up, and so, You always
It's like they didn't know how to
maybe
cook for
go
2
eat
people.
more. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's not my family. They don't know how to do that.
I am with you. I grew up in the same family, I think. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a balance there, right? So everything in moderation, including moderation, and I think that's a good, like, tip rule of thumb for the food part of it. But, and then lastly, that we're maximized by movement. And what that looks like is moving your body to the capacity that you're able. Ideally, it's with an elevated heart rate for 20 to 60 minutes every single day. Um, and lots of little mini movements throughout the day. But movement is really where all of it comes together and kind of gets maximized or catalyzed into the fullest potential. So I think it's funny how oftentimes New Year's resolutions, folks will create some sort of like weight loss goal. It's like the most common goal, right? For New Year's is losing weight or getting to the gym. And that is really like the second half of how your physical wholeness can really expand. If you're not breathing properly and if you're not sleeping right, those other two things don't carry as much impact. So we start with that.
Well, yeah, and I think about, honestly, I do move and it's become a part of my regular routine and I feel like that helps me with my mental. So you talk about holistic
Yeah,
leader, so it
absolutely.
does help with the
Mhm.
mental and all ties together. But
Mhm.
I'm curious with the breath piece, maybe you can,
Yeah,
if you don't mind, give a
absolutely.
some insight as to for
Yeah.
those listening out there that April
Mhm.
are like,
What is this
so
breath?
how do I breathe?
Yeah.
Maybe give some guidance on that.
Yeah, so the perfect breath is a 5.5-second inhale through your nose and a 5.5-second exhale through your nose. So you wanna do it together? And then I
Yes,
can
let's do
explain
it,
it.
girl. All
Okay.
right.
So
Tell
I'm
us
gonna
the
I'm gonna
listeners,
count
y'all
you
ready to
out.
breathe?
Yes, let's
Okay.
do it together. I'm gonna count you in and out of it so you can just practice it, okay?
Okay.
So inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Inhale through your nose, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's called the perfect breath. Tell me what your body is feeling, or tell me what you thought about just that practice of
Well, it's
2 full
just it
breaths.
slows things down, right? And I think a lot of times when you're a leader, you're moving fast. And
Mhm.
actually, my experience, April, I used to have this coach who was like more of a holistic. We were actually didn't focus all the time on leadership. It was like more relational, all the things, kind of some of the stuff we're talking about. But
Yeah.
every time before we would start our like 2 hour,
Mhm.
let's talk about all the things for the month, she would lead us through breathing,
Good. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's such and I'm not saying that I've been doing the right breath over here, okay, or integrating that
Yeah.
tool. So you're really bringing me back to
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so basic that we have at our
Mhm.
disposal to use at any
And it's
time,
free.
and it's free. You just got to breathe. See what I did there?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But you know what I mean? Like it's so simple, but at the same time too, it can slow things down so much and also help your body as well, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
know more about the science
Yeah.
than I do, but
Yeah, I mean, the science is really incredible. And honestly, I've been doing this work for 20 years. And I just, about a year, not even a year and a half ago, one of my mentors told me to read this book on breathing. And it's connected to a physical struggle challenge that I've been going through the last couple of years. And I was reading this book and I actually felt so mad because I was like, how have I been doing this work for 20 years? And I've never, ever once had anyone teach me about breath. Like, this is never, I mean, yes, breathing exercises and meditation, but not like biologically, physiologically, what it does for your central nervous system, what it does for your brain, what it does for the white blood cells in your body and your immune system. Like, there's so many pieces that it wraps up. And you're absolutely right. Like, it slows things down. Like, I have been practicing this now for over a year, and I'm realizing how much work I have to do. Like, what an amateur I am with breathing. How usually my breaths are shallow and really fast. And that's how I move really as a human, right? And specifically as a leader. Like, I just quick, fast breaths and I'm just going, going, going. And when I find anxiety raise or stress raise or like I can't catch my breath, it's like a trigger to me of going, okay, perfect breath, let's go. And I'll pause myself for a minute or two and it recalibrates, it shifts me for the day. And Christy, I think you said something that's also really important in that we are constantly forgetting what we know. You know, like we're
All
not
the
doing the things
time.
that we've been
Yes.
taught that we used to do. And so, really, this work to becoming our whole self, it's a lifelong journey. It's not like you ever put it on autopilot, you ever check out, you ever go like, okay, I've nailed it all. I actually retake our wholeness assessment every 6 months because as somebody who has created this and does this work every single freaking day, I'm like, oh, I haven't been thinking about this for a while. I have not been mindful, or, I've grown. And so I need to pay more attention to this part in order to raise the waterline in every part of my life and leadership. And in this, it gives us just a good pathway to run down to pay attention to what is most important and where is like the low hanging fruit for me to really experience more growth and transformation.
Yeah, I'm curious, what was the name of the book that you, read on the breath that kinda was transformative for you?
It's called Breath. It's by James Nestor. It's phenomenal. He shares a whole bunch of breathing exercises, but the perfect breath is kind of the central element of it. Life
Well, yeah,
changing.
and I'm a therapist by, I guess,
Yep.
by trade or by by calling, maybe you call it that.
Mhm.
And it is interesting about how, and even like you said, you can know about the tools and you'll forget the tools
Yeah.
and you have to go back to the
Yeah.
tools, but really that breath can be so grounding. And I can even think about an experience I had yesterday in my leadership role that I have. And,
Mhm.
as I was reflecting later on in the day, after I'd processed it a little bit and was still trying to move
Yeah.
through it, this discomfort, whatever, I reflected back and I'm like, it reminded me again, if I can just slow down enough, and I
Yeah.
was reflecting of what I could have done differently. I'm like, if you
Good.
could have just slowed down a little bit, and like you said, maybe even in my mind, take 5
Yeah.
count breath in,
5 breaths is
5
1 minute.
count
You can take a
breath
minute.
out. Yes. Do it 5 times. Just
Mhm.
slow down, shush up for a minute,
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
just process all the things that I just got thrown at me, right? Then my response is honestly gonna be
Totally different.
1,000 times better
Yeah.
than versus just information coming at of me, which a lot of leaders
Mhm.
do. They have
Yep.
information
Yep.
coming at them. They have to process it. Sometimes they have to make quick decisions quickly. Sometimes they don't
Mhm.
need to make any decision for a
Yeah.
period of time before they
Yep. Good.
respond. But
Mhm.
that breath work, I think I'm glad that you brought up this tool. I think is something that I haven't thought about it for a while, but it really can help you slow and center yourself before you move
Mhm.
on to the next thing or before you say something you will
Yeah.
regret later. I don't know if you ever
Yeah.
had this happen for you, April, that you're
All the
like,
time.
let me beep, 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 back up my little truck.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, again, that's why I double down on the when you expand your internal capacity, you'll naturally get different external results. And what you just
Yeah.
described there is taking even 1 minute or 30 seconds, like, you just do a few breaths, right? We just did 2 together, and it's like the RPMs go down, the clarity of thought goes back online, your neocortex is in a better place, your prefrontal cortex is like, "I can make better decisions now." You're not barking at people, you're not yelling at people, you're not disconnected from yourself, like, there's so many external benefits as a result of you leading yourself holistically first, and then everyone benefits from it. So, why wouldn't we do that? Because if the opposite, if we like reverse engineer it and, we're just fast and frantic and not taking the time that is necessary, like we are yelling at people, we're making bad decisions, and then the cleanup factor or the collateral damage is so much
Oh,
worse,
and
right?
it takes so much more time to
Takes
repair.
so much more time and energy, and you might not even be able to repair it, Like, you have
That's
broken
right.
trust, you have made a decision that is, like, bad for the business, you have fired somebody that should have been on a PIP instead of an actual release, there's so many consequences when we don't lead ourselves well, and yet, it's because it's not urgent, which a lot of leadership can feel urgent, we downgrade it, and we don't do it because it's like, well, tyranny of the urgent wins the day.
Man, I love how you said that because I really think when I think about it, because my question in my mind was like, yeah, why, what is the challenge for individuals leading themselves first and taking that space? And I think, like you just hit the nail on the head, it's because everything else feels so urgent. So I'm going to
Mhm.
prioritize that. Why would I prioritize leading myself? And if you're like, just for the love of people is why you lead,
Yeah,
you think to
yeah.
yourself, hey, I need to help all these people, the challenge of the helpers
Yeah.
in the world, right? I need to help, I need to lead, I need to do whatever, fill in the blank for these other people,
Yeah.
that it almost seems that our care for ourselves or taking
Yeah.
the time to make sure that we're
Yeah.
prioritizing our internal
Mhm.
needs, or
Mhm.
you don't prioritize it, and then it
Correct.
gets to the bottom of the barrel, and
Mhm.
then you're continuing to lead.
It's a
I'm
perpetuating
seeing this
cycle,
switch in
right?
my
A
mind. Yeah, I
downward.
mean, I've been there
Yeah.
before. I come across in
Totally.
a leadership position, and I still get in there sometimes, for sure, 1,000%, because it creeps up on you, and you're just
Mhm.
showing up, trying to move the needle forward, help make sure everybody's
Mhm.
taken care of, make sure that nothing's
Yeah.
falling apart, so that everybody has a
Right.
job tomorrow and we all okay,
Right.
and
It's with good intention, but then the
yeah,
outcome is still bad. And
yeah,
so, I mean, I tell leaders all the time, self-leadership is never selfish. It's
mhm.
not. It is one of
How
the
do
most selfless and loving things that you can do for the people that you lead.
how do you help leaders increase their urgency around this to take this time for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time folks come to me, it's because there is something that is pressing. There is something
Yeah.
that is like raise the urgency level. So they are in a transition, they're feeling massively stuck. They have been in the same role and they want a promotion, they want the growth. They want to move into a different field. Like there's something that is compelling. And that's again kind of the truth of human behavior, right? Is we often don't change for out of pleasure reasons. We will change because there's pain that we're no longer willing to settle or tolerate. And so that pain point is what pulls people into I'm just no longer willing, to be here, to settle for this, to tolerate this, to be stuck, to deal with this collateral damage. So there's something that is kind of that pushing in of the pain to want something different and to do work that is going to get them that result as a result.
And what I heard you say in that little statement there is that, folks, if you don't want to keep on following up or hitting up against the same
Yeah.
pain,
Hmm.
you got to do something different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes that means maybe looking at yourself and
Hmm.
getting the help. And I mean, honestly, April, I was in a place, I think it was towards the end of last year, that I had some challenges in my leadership role, and I was overwhelmed. I was pretty much at the burnout place. Like there's no
Mm,
denying it. And I had
yeah.
worked hard to not put
Yeah.
myself back in that place, because I'd been there
Totally.
before, right?
Totally.
If you've ever
Yeah.
been really burnt out, you realize how not fun that
Yep.
is, and
Yeah.
how it takes a long time to get back to a place of
Yes. The
where
recovery
you're
takes
feeling
longer.
like yourself, honestly, and that you're
Mhm.
able to show up
Mhm.
as yourself in a
Yeah.
leadership capacity. And it was from that pain that then pushed me to
Mhm.
get my own help in this area in leadership, because I was like, "I'm a okay leader. I read them books. I think I, try to be supportive of people and
Yeah.
hold the line,
Yeah.
but then also value them. And this is great. I've got it figured out."
Mm.
And I think it's in those moments where you think you've arrived, but then you realize, no, ma'am.
A little humble pie is on the other side of that.
You need help. And I think you have different phases of leader. I'm sure, as you've been a leader
Totally.
for, like you said, 40 something years of your life, right? There's different I don't want to say levels of leadership, but
Yeah.
there's different roles that you
100%.
are sometimes put in as a leader. And there's
Yeah.
certain either identities you have to let go of. There's
Mhm.
certain ways you have to lead
Mhm.
differently than maybe you
Yep.
have in the past.
Yep.
And it's a journey. And if you are
Yeah.
not making sure you're okay, I think leaders have even a greater burden of responsibility to do this work. I don't know if you feel the
100%.
same way, because you
Absolutely.
are influencing all these people. And
Absolutely.
if you're working out of a not great place, then you could be doing a lot of I hate to say
Mhm.
damage,
Yeah.
but you may not be aware,
Absolutely.
but like, then your
There's
stuff's getting
harm.
spewed over everybody else, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Yeah, you have impact for better, for worse. And I
Mhm.
mean, some of the leaders that I respect most are folks that are very proactive. Like they are consistently in a therapist office, right? They have a coach that they pay, not somebody, some hack online, but like
Yeah.
they actually pay somebody to get in their business, right? They have mentors that are on a short list that they call and say, like, help, talk to me about this. I'm struggling with that. There's like a gaggle of people that are around these leaders that they are proactively choosing and moving into it. And I deeply believe that, especially as a leader, but simply as a human, you are your best investment.
Yeah.
You are.
A
It's not your
100%.
401k. It's
100%.
not anything extra. It's yourself. And so, I mean, I have been practicing what I preach here for a couple of decades now. I disproportionately invest in my own growth and transformation and leadership. Like it looks irresponsible probably in some ways to some people.
Yeah.
But I just know that when I invest in myself, the ripple effect and the exponential increase that happens is really profound because it's not going to stop here. It's going to make a difference in every single thing that I do, from my mothering to being a wife, to being a CEO, to being a coach. Every time I'm on a stage, like it will impact other people. And so why wouldn't I disproportionately invest in myself for the sake
Yeah.
of others? It's an act of love, really.
No, and I agree, April. Every time that I feel like, oh no, I should make that. Every time I've ever made an investment in myself, it's helped multiply the ability that I have,
That's
or
right.
my impact, or my influence. And I do think the more you get into levels of responsibility and leadership, like you have to have support because you realize, number one, I can't lead by myself, right? It takes
Correct.
a team. But I
Yeah.
also have to support other leaders and empower other leaders. And
Yeah.
I can only lead as far as I'm able to grow. And so if
Yep.
I've hit my ceiling of growth, then
Hmm.
that means that that business, that organization,
Hmm.
that community,
Everything else has.
that it's all going to pass,
Yep.
not saying that it can't grow past you, but I think a lot of times then
Hmm.
that's where those problems arise. At least it has
Yep.
for me and my
Yep.
experience. If something is growing um, past your ability to help yourself grow,
Hmm.
because then it
Yep.
just grows past you and then you get overwhelmed, burnout,
Hmm. Hmm.
not sure how to handle these things.
Yeah, I
Then
agree with
yeah,
you.
that time for yourself. So I'm curious about, because I know we're about to run out of time, but what about that renewal piece? Because you said that was the second piece that people are like,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
assessment
totally.
list.
We start with physical because your body is the basis for your whole life. And then we end our coaching process with renewal. And not because it's the least important, but because it actually is like the cherry on top. It is kind of the catalyzer for all 6 parts. And renewal is all about that your burnout potential is directly correlated to your energy capacity. So we look at renewal through the lens of energy. How are you experiencing energy in an exhausting way or in an expanding way? So we have an exercise that we walk folks through called the energy expanders and exhausters. And it's really a simple process, but it helps leaders to see on paper the reality of what is leaking your energy, what's exhausting your energy, and what is actually expanding your energy. So I would say, like right now, Christy, this is an energy expander for me. Having this
Oh,
conversation
heck
with
yes.
you on this podcast, right? Like I will finish. I actually, to be honest, I'm having some, I don't know if the listeners are going to see this or just hear this, but I have been experiencing some really weird things with my eyes. So you can't, I know you don't know me, but like my eyes are really, do you see them? They're like crinkly and baggy and
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
this is not normal for me. My eyes look like yours, but I'm
Yeah.
experiencing some like weird allergic reaction or infection. And it's been a recurring thing this month, particularly. And I can't figure it out. It's driving me crazy. So I'm paying attention to my body. But walking into this conversation, I was feeling exhausted because I woke up and my eyes were super swollen and there's these red bags under my eyes. And I'm like, I'm freaking doing a podcast interview today. Like, and I look like a crazy lady. I look like somebody punched me in the face.
Why
And so I'm
eyes?
just,
Why?
why? This is not the right time. So I was feeling exhausted from the drain of that physical experience, right? But I'm going to end this conversation feeling way more energy, even though another hour of my day has passed, because I am doing something with someone that is expanding my energy. So if you want to lower your burnout rate, you need to increase your energy capacity. So that is, there are a number of things that go into renewal for sure, but that's kind of the main point and the most important thing is how are you managing your energy and doing more of what it energizes you and less of what is exhausting you. So it
Yeah.
cycles really back into that first pillar of our bodies. So the other thing that we see with leaders a lot is high degrees of stress for reasons that are super obvious, right? Um, but stress has 2 options within our body. When we experience stress, it has 2 options. You either metabolize it through your body or it metastasizes within your body, like a cancer. And you literally see results of stress manifest themselves in your bodies through all kinds of physical issues. So the best way for you to metabolize that stress through your body is to move with an elevated heart rate for 20 to 60 minutes every single day. It literally works the stress out of your body through that movement. So that's why renewal circles back to the very beginning of our bodies. All 6 parts are interconnected. They're interrelated with one another. But if you want to avoid burnout, it is managing your energy and managing your stress. And so that stress, that's how it is best resolved. And it's one of the coolest things to me about just how we are to function holistically is to see it all come together and be like, boom, this is it. It's all connected.
Yeah. And, as you're thinking about this, and again, guys, y'all know I'll use my personal experiences up on here, this podcast. But I mean, honestly, this just happened to me yesterday. Like I told you, I had this thing and I did know I was feeling so exhausted by the end of the day because it was an energy suck. Like, I started off with really good energy at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day. And then by the end of the day, I was like, that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I might need rest, and I did end up going to bed very early and had a lot of hours of sleep, but it was great.
Good.
But before I did that, I did put my tennis shoes on, even though I didn't want to. And I took 2 laps, which is probably about a little bit over a mile around my neighborhood. And after I finished it, it doesn't mean that I still wasn't bothered or worried or whatever.
Totally.
But I did
it's not a magic
feel
pill.
like it released some of it, right? And I probably did not ruminate on it as much.
Yeah.
If I would have ruminated on stuff more if I hadn't allowed myself to move. So I feel like this whole cycle that you're talking about from like energy awareness and capacity. I know we didn't even talk about the emotional, mental, or relational, but that's for another day, folks. Yeah. Just call April, okay, and she's going to help you through that. But I can see how it all plays out, and I think there is a way that if you want to be a leader and you actually want to enjoy leadership, then it is making sure that, because I think leadership can be super fun and super rewarding. But what I'm hearing you say, and for y'all listening, is you say, take care of yourself, okay, and get some help to do it. Get some help to do it. So, okay, April, if somebody is like, I'm ready for some help, I may need to assess my leadership where I'm at and if I need help. Where can they kind of connect with you at or maybe find a way to assess this for themselves?
Yeah, totally. So probably the best place for you to go is our website, ezerandco.com, EZERANDCO.com. I'm sure you'll drop a link somewhere in the show notes.
Absolutely.
And then on our homepage, but we can also drop a direct link, is a quiz called From Overwhelmed to Empowered. And it is a 20-question, it's a shortened version of our wholeness assessment. It's a succinct 20-question mini assessment to give you really a quick overview as to how you are doing in all 6 of those parts. And it'll give you some specific, next steps, results, so that you can actually take some steps forward and do that. But of course, like I'm a coach. I'm an executive coach. And so we've got executive coaching groups that launch a couple of times a year. You can hop on our email list and hear from me every single week around this whole idea of holistic leadership. So that's probably the best place to get started.
Yeah. Well, April, I have one final question for you that I like to ask my awesome guests that come on the show. But I'm curious, if you were to give that younger leader, maybe it was the 15-year-old that was, leading the student council and also had student leadership role, or it could have been the 20-something you, 30-something you. But if you were to go back and give younger you one piece of leadership advice, what is that piece of advice you would give younger April?
Yeah, it's literally my core message now. It is the number one thing that I am about and that my company is about. And that is lead yourself holistically first. Nobody else is responsible to lead yourself. It's not your spouse, your partner, your business partner, CEO, your mom. Nobody else's responsibility to lead you. It's yours. And you got to do it holistically, not from, a limited, unilateral, one-dimensional approach. It's holistically. And it's the first thing. It may not be urgent, but it is the most important. So that's what I would tell myself. And that's what I still tell myself.
Well, April, I just want to say I acknowledge you and I'm very grateful for you to help these leaders throughout wherever they come from that you help. Because I know that leadership, we'll go back to the beginning. Leadership is hard, folks. Okay. Yeah. Leadership is hard. But I know sometimes it's just that supportive piece that helps remind people to take care of themselves, lead themselves, figure out how to do this in a holistic way so they can sustain and create that lasting influence that I believe a lot of leaders do want to make. Yeah. And so I appreciate you not only coming to the show today, but also taking the time to work with people to help them learn how to do this in a more sustainable and holistic way.
My pleasure. This was a super energizing conversation. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. For me too. Let's be honest with you. I tell the listeners all the time, I do this for them, but I also do it selfishly for me because when I walk
Yeah.
from an interview, I'm like, I learned a lot. I was reminded how to breathe today and also how to
Mhm.
take care of myself. And so, I think we all are just going through this journey and figuring out a day at a time. But the
Yeah.
more we can do it in a way that is sustainable, that really aligns with who we are, I think we can show up a little bit better in the world, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Christy.
Yeah. So, listeners, y'all know, I leave y'all with one little nugget. And folks, you heard it from April. Okay. And this is the real talk that I'm leaving you with today is nobody can lead you but you. And so if you find yourself in a leadership position, I know it's hard to pause and do that reflective work and maybe get a coach or get some help. But listen, you owe it to yourself because
Mhm.
you a cool person. So go ahead, take some time, work on that breathing, and get some help. So that way you can create impact and influence that'll last. Until next time.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.